我们的 keynote speaker 者志案州立大学副教务长刘俊博士来谈一谈成就专业人士的挑战与机遇。
那我首先来介绍一下刘军博士啊，就是这里大家看到的刘军博士呢是现任GSU 的Associate Provost 副校长，那么主管国际事务和国际交流项目。那么刘军博士呢也是去年的，到现在快满1年了，我记得去年秋天时的我们就一直有很好接触。他曾任Atlanta副校长助理英文系以及孔子学院院长。刘军教授呢现任世界汉语协会的副主席，所以他也是他跟交流，他还是汉办的一个 senior advisor。那么具体呢刘军博士呢还就说这些是他还担任过05到07年世界英语教师协会主席。那么所以他的业余的担的职务比较多 ，contribution 在社会的。刘军教授该协会6年成立了第1位华人主席，也是第1位母语非英语的主席。那么刘军教授呢81年毕业苏州大学外语系的，那么89年是华东师范大学硕士，然后在这边是俄亥俄大学拿的 PhD。那么刘军博士呢主要研究跨文化的交际、语言政策、2语习的教育大纲的标志的发展课程设计。刘军教授他在众多的国际杂志上发表过80多篇论文，然后他在30多个国家做过上百份报告，然后他也好像出了10本书。下面我们 welcome Dr. Jun Liu， 谢谢刘军博士给我们做他的解释，谢谢。
非常感谢。Is there anyone here who does not speak Chinese?
Yeah, we have some.
Okay. Yeah, I probably will speak English because wherever I speak, if there is one person who does not speak the language, I have to use English because English is a global language. A few hours ago, I just landed in Atlanta. I was on a business trip to Brazil. So I was in Rio yesterday and until this morning. But I promised Julin and Hu Huizhang, I'd like to come to help celebrate the 20th anniversary, and I'm very honored. 姚参战今天也很荣幸见到你我，跟休斯顿总领事馆也有好多熟人的朋友。Okay, so I just want to send one message within these 20 minutes. It's not easy to talk about it within 20 minutes. What does it mean to be a professional? I will use some of my own examples, my professional examples in my field as teaching English as a second language, or applied linguistics, now teaching Chinese as a second language. And also some examples from my current university, Georgia State University, to send a message to see whether we are happy as professional and what is our goal, what is next. We have established our association for 20 years. What about next 20 years? So I chose a topic called becoming professional rather than being professional. And there is a subtle meaning difference here. Becoming professional means a process. You can be a professional, but that professional is ongoing. There are always challenges, opportunities, and you should keep aiming high. And being a professional is a status. You acknowledge yourself as a professional, then you do whatever you feel you like to do and be happy. But now, this is the 21st century. We have to always think ahead. What can I do differently tomorrow? What are the opportunities and challenges ahead of me? And what we together as an association, a company, corporation, school, or university can do differently to meet the challenge and to surpass, excel in this field. About 20 years ago, I came to the United States. So when you just started, at that time I was a graduate student at the Ohio State University. I am still a Buckeye. The first challenge was that I majored in English in China, and I majored English language teacher again in the United States. Is there any chance for me to find a job? You can become an accountant to work in a company. You can become a lawyer if you major in law or business school. But what about English? English is the strength of the United States. Can you teach American English? So I received lots of challenges and suspicion. Change your major as soon as possible. Don't even go to it, because English is not your first language. How come you can become English professor? I thought about it, and thought about getting it out, and I thought about changing my major, and I even thought about opening a Chinese restaurant on graduation. So these are thoughts cross my mind. But I asked myself, what am I good at? Learning English as a Chinese speaker has greatest advantage because I can learn the process of learning a language. We are facing lots of English learners around the world. In China alone, there are about 3 million or 300 million learners. 温家宝在总理在几年前曾经说过，中国有300 million learners. And English is a global language now. It does not belong to the United States, nor UK, nor Australia, Canada, or New Zealand. English is a language spoken by the majority of those whose first language is not English. If you travel to Rio, for instance, I speak with someone from Pakistan, and the language we can speak is English. Because he does not speak Chinese, I do not speak Pakistani. So what does that mean? That means that the majority of people who use the language in daily jobs, in companies, use English as a functional language, as a tool with which they communicate with people from across the world. And that sends a strong message to our teaching implication. So in China, where we grew up, we learned Lincoln course, BBC, New Concept English, or 许国璋英语, if you were that old. Then you know those kind of things. But that time, we learned English because there was lack of audiovisual materials, lack of authentic input. And that was the only way we could learn. But we still learned solidly grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. But nowadays, because of the change of language in the world, that our goal is different. We do not pay particular attention to pronunciation accuracy, but we pay more to fluency and complexity. For instance, ETA's TOEFL test, as you know, TOEFL test usually the standard 看你的标准度、流利度和理解能力。But now they realize that that is not enough because Chinese students are clever enough. They can speak very slowly, accurately, fluently, and to the point without taking risks or elaborating. So that's why they changed the format from TOEFL to IBT to challenge Xindongfang's strategies to train so many students to take GRE, GMAT, or IBT. But now, I think they are going to think again. They might change IBT in the next 10 to 15 years. So coming back to my point, at GSU, for instance, I came to take this job last year. And I faced a challenge because I had to spend, and I have to spend now, almost all my time on university business without having to teach, without having to do my research. I still do some research, but I don't have enough time to do that. So that is my personal challenge. But to me, I'm at a crossroad to feel whether I should still continue to publish, to do research, or try to do something which might be more meaningful, have more impact on the students I teach, on the colleagues I work with. Because GSU, as you know, is one of the research universities in Atlanta, together with the Georgia Tech, Georgia University of Georgia, and we are research-oriented, but we are not highly ranked, unfortunately, as Georgia Tech and Emory or University of Georgia. That's fine. That means that is an opportunity. So our president, Mark Becker, as many of you know, who is very interested in China, who has traveled China many times, and who sent his son to work in China, study in China, has already realized that the future relies on emerging markets, such as China, Brazil, Turkey, or South Korea. And these are the emerging market, and these are the countries that our university wants to be affiliated with. And that is why when they interviewed me, they asked me, do you have, I know that you speak Chinese, do you have lots of contact in China? Unfortunately, I did not know you or you. I should have said, yes, I already know the association, but I didn't say anything. I said, well, I believe I'm from China, I know Chinese very well, but more importantly, I can do something with China, for China, and not against, okay, and together with collaborating with China. So that's why in our university we have set a strategic plan. One of them is to target certain countries to become our collaborators. So we have already identified countries, and China, of course, is one of them. That's why I have to take trips to China very frequently, and I feel very proud to be a Chinese, working in US context. At this level, I can see lots of faculty, students, and association and colleagues in Atlanta are very much into China and business. So that is one of our goals, and try to look into this field and to take up the challenges to raise the level of GSU. But if we can do this part well, as one of our 5 strategic plans, probably GSU will surpass in many other ways as a global university. Because nowadays, globalization and talent globalization is a key. What does it mean for the company in the future? If you want to hire people, and one of the statistics, according to McKinsey, is that most of the cross-national or multicultural companies will look for talent who speak more than one language. So Americans who don't speak Chinese, Portuguese, Spanish will lose the ground to Asian Americans who speak both languages, or to Hispanic Americans who speak 2 to 3 languages. So that is the future, and the implication of which is huge. Because in China, English is a required subject. Students have to take English, math, and Chinese from early on, elementary school. What about the US? You only ask them to take 2 years, and there is no requirement in some cases. That means they feel they belong, they own English. But when English is threatened, and they will feel threatened. So that's why the challenge for the university is to promote multicultural and languages. Students really have to learn language, not only because they can speak fluently about that language, but because of the experience. When you learn a foreign language, you have to force yourself to understand the language and also the meaning, the culture behind the language. And that is the challenge. And in China, for instance, there are many successful English teaching models. Xin Dongfang is one of them. But many years ago, when they asked me if I'm willing to go back and work with them, I gave some thought. And finally, I decided not. Because I did not really deeply believe in examination-oriented teacher. Okay? You can teach the kids to take the examination, but you lose the opportunity to teach them to use the language to become communicative function. A few years ago at the University of Arizona, as the only Chinese, I was elected as chair of the English department. That was a challenge. But they never think of me as a Chinese. They think of me as a colleague. That means if we reach a certain professional standard, no one cares where you're from, what you speak, but they care about whether you can do things professionally. So when I first taught classes to American students, linguistics in English, I felt that no one trusted me at the very beginning because they did not believe they could be taught linguistics by a Chinese fellow. So I was sitting among them until the bell rang, and 2 minutes later I stood up to the front. I told them, I am your professor, my name is Jun Liu. I speak Chinese much better than English, but I know about English much better than Chinese. Because if it's your native language, it's intuitive. You don't even think for a second thought, it's natural. But it's not your first language, you have to think about it. You have to think about its structure, its function, its meaning, its form. And all these things will take conscious effort. That's why in this world, there are 80% of the language teachers in English who are not native speakers. And about 15 years ago, like what you did, I started a caucus, a movement, to gather all non-native English speakers together with the association called the Teachers of TESOL, Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, which is based in Washington, D.C. So I became one of the primary leaders of this association, called the Non-Native English Speakers Professionals. And we started strongly for 15 years. We have had more than 3,000 articles published, and 20% of doctoral dissertations in the field touch upon this topic: social identity, language impact, teacher methodology, teacher training. So if you are not a native speaker, you have certain things, you have great advantages. And so as I recall my own experience and professional endeavor, I can lead with your association. I believe many of you have already said that 20 years ago, when you started this association, you probably have never thought that it has lasted so strongly for 20 years, as many of you have confessed. But what about the next 20 years? That is something we all think about. In my profession, my personal growth, and in all of your, Georgia Power included, that if you want to reach the top in the next 20 years, you've got to start doing something different. And this is dictated by the trend, by the market. Technology is certainly one of them, but more importantly, the teams, the global teams, will be more important in doing business. For instance, when we work with Chongqing delegation. And I'm sure that when I was in Rio and Salvador and also Sao Paulo, I encountered lots of business people and also visited the U.S. consulate, the Office of Commerce. We talk about the business connection between Brazil and China. Slowing down of business in China affected Brazil. But once again, the fundamental difference is the cultural difference. The Rio is going to have Olympic Games in 4 years, World Cup in 2 years. But there's nothing going on. It was not until I was invited to the city to look at their operation, their plans, that I realized, wow, they do have a plan. And they have different strategies because of different population. There are lots of favelas over there, if you have already visited. And when I travel to South Africa, I do see different paths. In Cape Town or Pretoria or Joburg, you can see all those excitement, but they are also English-speaking countries. When I travel to Japan or Korea, you can see different pictures. But in China, I know that lots of cities are very interested in attract talents back to China with the city government support to start business and to start industry, commercialize lots of things. And I think that probably is the future, the first step of the future. But there will be lots of opportunities as well as challenges. I'm brainstorming with you not because I did not prepare. I did prepare the message, not the script. I wanted to share with you, and you can take away that what can we do differently. At the association, my association where I became the first and the only non-native English speaker for the TESOL, we started in 1966. We are going to celebrate our 50th anniversary. I did a study to look at the trends and movements in each decade, to look at the research topics, to look at the demographics of our participants, to look at our membership trend, and to look at the civil engagement. And all these kind of statistics indicate that the field sometimes will stabilize without going forward. And there are lots of challenges. So I would say that, first of all, congratulations for your 20th anniversary. And I am new to Atlanta. This might be the first time for me to speak formally, so thank you for your invitation. And I do want to see this association be successful, and if Georgia State can do anything, let us know. And meanwhile, I would like to see that more collaborations with other entities, with universities, with the business sector, as you have already done. I'm truly happy to be here. I know that my time is over. There are lots of other things to do. And thank you very much. And I hope your conference is a great success. Thank you.